Well, thank you, President Bollinger, for that kind introduction, and you certainly do deserve an A. I'd like to start out by welcoming everybody to this conference dedicated to the politics of food. To start, I do want to express my gratitude to Columbia. All across this university, people have been instrumental in making today happen, and I just want to recognize President Bollinger and Esther Fuchs, Dean Robert Garris, Michael Conard, and Richard Gonzalez. Thank you all for being partners today. Let's give them a round of applause. I'll tell you about our wonderful steering committee later, but I want to thank them for planning this conference. Thank you. Thank you. What an amazing turnout, and they should get a round of applause as well. You'll learn more about them later. The challenges government faces in connection with food are extraordinary. How many of you knew, for example, that we already grow enough food to feed everyone on Earth, but we fail to put that food in the mouths of the hungry? That's not just a distribution problem, that's a political problem, and it's one that must be fixed now. For more than half a century, America's thinking about food has been held hostage by ideas that are not just wrong, but sometimes dangerous. We've created a system that is very good for delivering lots of calories to American families at relatively low cost, but very bad at caring for the quality of food and our health. This approach has left 750,000 New Yorkers living in food deserts. These are communities that struggle to walk to a supermarket and try to find a supermarket. Usually the very same communities where rates of obesity and diabetes and asthma are an all-time high. We live in a time of high food prices, a weak economy, and new global pressures. Last year in New York City, 1.3 million people used a soup kitchen, a food pantry, or an emergency food program. But statistics only tell part of the story. If reform is to come, it will come in a change of thinking. The fact that you're here this morning means that you've probably been looking at how our society deals with food for a long time. And I know everyone here believes food pricing and the food agenda needs some real fixing. Unfortunately, that actually leaves you in the minority. Say the word farming, and people see amber waves of grain blowing in Kansas City wheat fields. Talk about hunger, and their minds turn to a starving child in a parched country somewhere far away. The Farm Bill, that's legislation drafted in Washington for corporate farmers in the Midwest. Most people see food production and distribution as something that happens out there, far away from Manhattan and New York City. That's got to end starting today. The politics of food happens right here in New York City. It's almost 2009, and we must make sure that food is at the top of the urban agenda. Less than 2 years ago, our office started a project called Go Green East Harlem. Working with the community, we brought the sustainability movement, an asthma center, thanks to the mayor, a farmer's market, thousands of street trees, to a place where it was badly needed. That neighborhood, not very far from here, had long been saddled with too many fast food restaurants, too few places to buy fresh vegetables and healthy food, and quite frankly, a feeling that we could not improve conditions there. But there was never any question, despite all of that the community's passion for healthy living was real. Just look at the Go Green East Harlem cookbook we published, full of healthy recipes from area residents and restaurants. And who could have imagined that when we started this project, this book would become the #1 best-selling cookbook in the country? Okay, that's not true. Okay. I almost had you for a minute. But what we did do was publish a book that's really a love letter from the people of East Harlem to the people of East Harlem, and we were able to give away thousands of these healthy cookbooks to seniors and to parents. And through that process, it came to change my personal thinking and open my eyes to just how difficult it is for people in New York to access a healthy meal. It's now time to think bigger about this question. So our challenge is to take community-based plans that many of you in the audience have been working and developing for years and bring them to scale. Neighborhood initiatives must be building blocks for a unified New York food agenda. And new approaches emerging from New York City and other world capitals must create a completely new way of thinking about food. Already, food charters have been written in London, Vancouver, and Philadelphia. Working together, we can propose a food charter for New York City today, right here. With this goal as a backdrop, no speaker could be more fitting than Father Miguel Descoto, President of the UN General Assembly. Please welcome him today. Give him a round of applause. Please pay close attention to his remarks. He has made time to be here for one reason. He believes that New York City must be a leader in changing the world's approach to food. And isn't that exactly the New York-sized ambition we've learned from our mayor, Michael Bloomberg, who's here today? Now, I am especially pleased that he's here because when you look at the issue of cigarette smoking and global warming, his programs have touched the world over. With Plan NYC 2030, he raised the bar again, challenging all of us in government to plan for the long term. This morning's third speaker, Maya Wiley, is a Columbia graduate and a leading voice on food justice. And we're also going to be hearing a very important presentation from Thomas Forster of the New School. With their help, let's make New York City the place where people talk about access to healthy food as a basic human right. Let's create a food policy that produces good living wage jobs in our restaurants, our markets, and our regional farms. Let's manage development so that adding a high-rise doesn't mean subtracting a supermarket. Let's expand environmental impact statements to cover not just our transportation infrastructure, but also our food infrastructure. And let's start right here today at this conference. Now, to make things happen, this cannot be a one-way conversation. All of you must be players. It's your job, every one of you here today, to rise to the challenge and use this conference to break through the status quo. Very soon, you're going to be headed off to breakout sessions led by people who've devoted their lives to finding better, healthier, and smarter ways to feed people. When you get to these sessions, you're going to learn, for example, from the West Side Campaign Against Hunger, they're feeding 250 people a day, 100 more than last year. Please don't just treat that as an interesting fact. Roll up your sleeves, talk to the person sitting next to you, and start creating a better food safety net. When you learn that our supermarkets sell apples from California and Washington 3,000 miles away, even though New York is a top apple-growing state, do more than just tell a friend that at dinner tonight. Use your experience to start a revolution in regional farming. And when you find out, as you will today, the children born since the year 2000 are the first generation of Americans expected to live shorter lives than their parents. Don't feel ashamed or angry. Insist that today is the day we begin creating a new food policy that makes our children healthy and strong. If you do this, I promise we will look back on this conference knowing that we started something important here. And that's why you're here. That's why we need your participation, your energy, your passion, and your ideas. Today, we begin making policy for our state, city, and international leaders. I welcome you to this conference. I thank you for being here. Now, I'm very pleased to start the program with someone that I quite frankly can't believe we got to be a speaker. And the people that we're going to hear about are some really amazing folks. But the first speaker is the President of the United Nations General Assembly, Father Miguel Descoto. Please welcome him. Give him a big round of applause. I want to tell you a little bit about him. President Descoto is an ordained priest and former Minister of Foreign Affairs for Nicaragua. In 1972, when an earthquake left two-thirds of the region displaced and without access to aid, President Descoto founded a relief organization that today remains a celebrated resource for Nicaraguans in need. As the new President of the General Assembly, he's carried his dedication to the battles against poverty and disenfranchisement on an international stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. President. Please come up, sir. Miguel Descoto. Thank you very much.